Good evening, televiewers. You are welcome to another edition on Prime R. We this evening are going to be looking at the situation actually reigning in Womb, chief town of Menchum Division. We know that there is a lot of tension in that town, my end of the country, where we understand that the Mbororos are attacking the Agam indigenes following an attack on some Mbororos. 5 of them were killed, or reportedly killed, and we know that we have reprisals. The indigenous Agam population came out this morning to denounce what they described as unwarranted attacks from the Mbororo community, and but this evening we are still getting information that attacks were still recorded in Womb. What is actually happening? What is the hidden hand behind these attacks? But principally this day we are going to be looking at the visit to Cameroon of French President Emmanuel Macron. He is making his first stop in Africa, in Cameroon, after he was re-elected president of the Republic of France. He had a meeting with the president of the Republic, His Excellency President Paul Biya, after which a press conference was granted to the world, telling us what they discussed between the two presidents. We're going to be asking ourselves whether something is going to change as far as the Franco-Cameroonian relationship is concerned. Are Cameroonians happy? Are they satisfied with what came out of the discussions today, especially after the declarations of President Macron indexing Russia on its ploy to take over Africa? Also, the response that was given to the journalist, RFI journalist, who asked President Paul Biya whether he was going to stand for 2025 elections. The president told her that he still has 3 years to go, and that when the time comes, she's going to be informed whether he's still going to stand for elections or going back to his village. We are discussing this with our panelists who are in the house already. We have with me in the studio our permanent consultant, Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, Cameroonians. Good evening, my co-panelists, and welcome to today's edition. We are having a very sad note from Menchum, the ruthless mayhem and the mother of indigenes of the Agam people and some Boros, which is not a good sign to our community, and we are here to pray for peace to return to that part of our country. Okay.
We also are in the company of Mr. Shuneh Siaka. He is a political analyst. We're glad to have you for the first time on Prime.
Yes, Leo. Good evening, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. I'm honored and delighted to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I think together we are going to analyze fundamental facts concerning Cameroon, and the international community. French president was here. We are worried and saddened to hear that our people are dying. For how long will our people continue to die? We need to seek fresh solutions so that our people should stop dying.
Okay. We also are in the company of Jean Souley Kwete. He's a journalist who works with us here. He's in the house. Bonsoir, bienvenue.
Merci beaucoup, bonsoir Léo Kum. J'avais failli dire monsieur le directeur général, mais merci de me recevoir sur cette plateforme qui est l'une des émissions les plus populaires au Cameroun aujourd'hui. Une plateforme qui commence malheureusement aujourd'hui avec cette note triste qui vient du nord-ouest.
Malgré ce que fait Médiatud fait semblant que... Oui,
les faits sont têtus. Oui. Cette émission est un grand rendez-vous au Cameroun, l'un des grands rendez-vous du Cameroun, il faudrait le dire. Je voudrais avoir une pensée pour ceux qui sont victimes de l'incident survenu dans le nord-ouest, notamment à Menchum. Cela arrive pendant que le président français est en séjour au Cameroun. Eh bien, je pense que pendant cette émission, on va peut-être poser notre regard sur la présence de M. Emmanuel Macron dans notre pays et ce que cela pourrait apporter comme changement dans les relations entre le Cameroun et la France. Permettez-moi de saluer les copanélistes qui sont là, que j'ai l'habitude de regarder avec beaucoup de plaisir quand je suis cette émission, et de faire un clin d'œil à une localité qui suit particulièrement Media Prime, c'est Bambi Bacham. C'est une localité dans le département des Bamboutos, où j'ai séjourné tout récemment. Cette localité est toujours connectée sur Media Prime. Je voudrais leur dire salut et leur dire merci de suivre cette chaîne de télévision qui monte et qui a déjà une très bonne place sur l'échiquier des médias au Cameroun. Merci de m'avoir invité.
Okay. We're also in the company of Maih Jarvis. He's a journalist who works here with us. Also, good evening, Jarvis, and welcome.
Good evening to you. Good evening to the peace-loving people of the Northwest and Southwest region. And also special good evening to Chairman John Frundi, the elite of the Northwest region, for them to understand that this is a moment for unity. This is a moment where we have to shun divide and come together for a common cause to save the lives of the people of Wum, which is in Menchum division, be it from the Fulani community or be it from the Arab community. We are all humans, we are all Cameroonians, and we should enjoy the right to life. And so good evening to them, and good evening to the President of Cameroon, His Excellency President Paul Biya, and special good evening to Macron. We believe that the discussions today were of the interest of Cameroonians and the people of France for mutual benefit, and also to ensure that the nation move on without the fear of possible grey and grey.
Okay, we are going to kickstart with the visit to Cameroon of President Emmanuel Macron. He had an exchange with the President of the Republic, after which a press conference was granted to the world to explain what was discussed behind closed doors. Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa, you followed up. Can we change what is there? We are starting with President Emmanuel Macron's visit. Okay, yes. Your first impressions from what you've gathered as reactions from the population after the press conference.
Yeah, let me begin with the hilarious and exhilarating welcome that Cameroonians gave to Macron, even though he arrived late in the night. I was shocked to see the amount of persons that gathered at the Smaland airport to hail Macron arriving in Cameroon. I thought Jesus Christ is coming again to rapture the world. I never knew that Macron is another Jesus Christ to almost every Cameroonian that lives in Yaoundé. And there was a mobilization by the city mayor of Yaoundé to make sure that people are put in place for Macron's arrival in Cameroon. Well, granted, he's in Cameroon, and we are happy that he came to visit us because nobody despises strangers. But the issue is every stranger that comes in must carry a peace plant. That's the kind of stranger who is supposed to be welcome. Jesus said, if you go to a house, bring your peace. If your peace is not accepted, you back out of that house. So we want strangers in Cameroon that bring peace in Cameroon, that bring love in Cameroon, that bring oneness in Cameroon. To me, I have a worry with Macron's arrival at this time because Cameroon has been a partner with France for so many years, and Cameroon has been a very deep shit for the past 4 to 5 years with the Anglophone crisis, expecting France as a big brother to have stepped into this brouhaha in the country to mellow down the situation, but France has been silent. And for seeing the President of France coming to Cameroon, everything is almost dying off, is a worry to me. Nevertheless, he has come, and we are almost towards the end of the crisis. We believe that whatever he has discussed with President Paul Biya will definitely help to silence, first and foremost, the Anglophone crisis, which is a major challenge in our country right now, because we are losing human beings, losing soldiers, losing civilians, losing even the innocent, losing properties, losing education, losing so many things. So I pray that his visit to Cameroon, behind us, discussion will be able to solve the problem concerning the Northwest and the Southwest. Secondly, Cameroon is going through a lot financially. We have an increase in the price of basic commodities as well as fuel in the country. And France being a partner with Cameroon, I'm sure they are equally coming to Cameroon to proffer a solution. Considering the press conference that was granted today, I must appreciate that at the age where President Paul Biya is right now, he actually acted beyond our expectation. The way he responded to the questions were beyond our expectation. I was looking at him like somehow he will react like what he did in France when Ibrahim Mo confronted him. But Pobia was far more better off today than what he did in France. And the questions that were asked to him, and he responded them effectively. One of the things that gave me a lot of courage was when he said that Cameroon is governed by the Constitution, and he has 3 more years to go into power. And it's after that that the Constitution will determine if he will pack his things to the village or he will stay in power. To me, I saw the display of a Solomonic dimension of wisdom in that response from President Pobia. When what is good, we appreciate it. When what is bad, we condemn it. We are not here to lean on the particular side. We are here to bring justice in the society, and we stand in between. If you are good, we say what is good. If you are bad, we say what is bad. So, considering what has transpired within the few hours that Macron came to Cameroon, I've not seen anything bad yet, except the aftermath of the discussion. The visit that we can talk better.
Okay, Mr. Siaka, your first take after what you observed happen at the Unity Palace today.
Yes, Leonard, from my personal perspective, I saw a demonstration of grandeur from the head of state, His Excellency Paul Biya. He responded to the questions with confidence, with assurance, with a perspective that he is sure about what he's doing, and he is leading Cameroonians to a prosperous destiny. He did not express any doubt in his physical outlook. We know that he's been a little bit weakened by age or whatsoever, but his political prowess was top on the chart. He spoke very intelligently, and I think that he spoke with Macron on a one-on-one basis as equal partners, working to see how they can lead Cameroon towards economic prosperity, working how they can see how they can move Cameroon out of the security impasse in which we actually find ourselves. And then I think they also discussed economy, and I saw in Macron a partner who is ready and willing to accompany Cameroon in its economic quagmire that we are actually going through. And I saw a partner who is willing to accompany Cameroon and change their ways. You know, there's this resentment that has been going on in West Africa against French imperialism, against French neocolonialism. But I saw a more progressive Macron who is willing to change the narrative and start collaborating with former French colonies as equal partners.
Okay. Now, but did you see from the interview a sign that the Anglophone crisis was discussed?
Yeah, obviously when Macron spoke about the security situation in the Gulf of Guinea, he didn't want to trickle down to the Anglophone crisis, but you understand that he spoke about it behind the doors. And I want to believe that in the days ahead, we are going to see how the narrative is going to change. We are going to see the approach of the president, because it is very strategic. It is a geopolitical situation that you can't just discuss it in public like that. Yeah. Because bringing it on the table might skyrocket the boys. Yeah, but bringing it. But
if you listen, I listened to President Macron very well. He made mention of the fact that he believes that they discussed on the need to get regionalization very actual, and he talked about the need for conciliation, and he talked about dialogue.
Exactly.
He used the word regionalism, dialogue, and conciliation,
which is the bone of contention that we are going through in this country.
Yes, and he mentioned that these are the things that ought to be done to address the issues in the northwest and southwest regions. He said that.
Yes, and it should be done. I think these are things that are in process, even though we condemn the fact that they have taken a long time. 1996, 1996 Constitution instituted the regional assemblies. It took over 20 years for them to be instituted, but politically we all say that it is better late than never, and we hope that with the insistence of President Macron today, considering that President Macron started his leadership 5 years ago on a note of criticism on the human rights situation of Mr. Biya and on his leadership clinging on power for over 40 years. Now that he has extended this hand of fellowship, I think they are going to work hand in hand and see that all these things are made for the betterment of Cameroonians.
Okay, Jean Soule, how do you appreciate or understand the fact that Cameroon is President Macron's first stopover in Africa after his re-election? Is it telling of the important place that Cameroon has in the France-African relationship, or the fact that France is losing out on specific countries and would want to ensure that its interests are fully guaranteed in Cameroon?
Yes, je pense que Macron l'a dit lui-même dans ses propos lors de la conférence de presse, que pendant ce dernier quinquennat, il allait mettre un accent sur l'Afrique centrale. Et c'était assez révélateur de ce qui a motivé sa présence au Cameroun en première partie de cette tournée africaine. C'est une tournée africaine. La place que le Cameroun occupe en premier, ce n'est pas anodin, c'est une indication, c'est un indicateur important qu'on devrait considérer. Et donc, Macron l'a dit, le Cameroun, l'Afrique centrale, est pour lui un centre d'intérêt dans les 5 années qui vont suivre, les 5 années de son mandat. Et pendant cette conférence de presse, on a aussi perçu dans ces allégations une interpellation à l'endroit de ce qui constitue le tissu économique français en présence au Cameroun. Il a parler aux Français de manière indirecte, mais parfois même directe, en leur disant de varier, de se mettre en combat, n'est-ce pas, pour conquérir le Cameroun. Donc je comprends que Macron est venu en terrain de conquête. C'est un voyage de conquête. Macron est venu reconquérir un pays ou alors une Afrique qui est en train de l'échapper petit à petit à la France. On pouvait imaginer cette visite un peu plus longtemps, c'est-à-dire dès sa prise de fonction, mais on se rend compte que le temps que Macron a mis pour venir enfin au Cameroun a suffi pour que la France se sente véritablement inquiétée par les partenariats tissés ici et là par des pays africains, notamment le Cameroun, avec d'autres grandes nations telles que la Chine, la Russie, le Brésil et l'Inde. Je voudrais revenir, si vous permettez, sur cette question que vous avez posée sur son arrivée au Cameroun. J'ai entendu l'abbé dire qu'il y avait un grand monde à l'aéroport pour attendre Macron, et il avait semblé être déçu par rapport à cette forte présence. Je voudrais dire que je n'ai pas eu le même regard.
Je ne suis pas sûr qu'il était étonné quand même.
Étonné, voilà. Je n'ai pas le même, je ne partage pas ce regard, cette observation. J'ai eu le sentiment que par rapport aux récentes visites des chefs d'État français au Cameroun, il n'y avait pas eu l'affluence des grands jours, des grandes visites des chefs d'État français. Et quelques informations, parce que je viens de Yaoundé, même sur le chemin de Macron, on n'a pas vu la grande affluence qu'on a l'habitude de voir quand Chirac était au Cameroun, on le savait. Donc il y a eu véritablement un désintérêt des Camerounais vis-à-vis de la France-Afrique. Donc ça, c'est notoire, c'est une observation qu'on doit dénoter pour parler de l'avenir de la France-Afrique. Maintenant, il y a également, vous avez évoqué la question, la crise anglophone. Comme ça m'a permis plus de paroles, je vais également dire un mot très rapidement. Effectivement, votre remarque est pertinente, parce que je n'ai pas le sentiment que la crise anglophone était véritablement au centre, en premier plan, parmi les priorités de ce voyage. Je n'ai pas ce sentiment-là. Vous savez, c'est dans des moments comme la conférence de presse qu'on perçoit véritablement l'objet de la visite d'un chef d'État en visite officielle.
Oui, mais est-ce que ce n'est pas les journalistes aussi qui ont péché? Parce que je m'attendais aussi qu'un journaliste...
J'y arrive,
oui.
J'y arrive.
Personne n'a abordé cela, mais c'est le président français lui-même,
voilà,
en déclarant qu'il a parlé de la régionalisation. Voilà. Il a parlé du dialogue, il a parlé de la... Non, quand il s'adressait, oui, il a parlé qu'ils ont parlé de la régionalisation. Oui, ils ont parlé de dialogue, conciliation, comme ce qu'il fallait faire. Oui,
voilà. C'était une évocation pour moi assez évasive pour un pays qui vit une crise aussi importante. Pour moi, c'était très évasif. Et vous savez, les conférences de presse dans les visites officielles, c'est des choses qui se préparent. Vous voyez, elle se prépare. Si vous voulez ressortir les vraies préoccupations d'une visite officielle, allez regarder les questions qui vont être posées. Vous voyez, la première question a été posée par un journaliste de la chaîne publique camerounaise. La deuxième question a été posée par la Radio France Internationale. Ça vous dit quelque chose. Et la première question qui est posée directement sur l'attitude de la France face à la guerre en Russie. Bon, je me suis posé la question de savoir, est-ce que c'était vraiment nécessaire d'entamer une discussion avec un chef de l'État, moi je parle aussi à nos confrères de la CRTV, avec une visite officielle, aussi attendue que celle-là, de commencer par cette préoccupation sur la guerre de Russie. C'est vrai qu'il a voulu comparer avec le soutien, il a voulu comparer, n'est-ce pas, le soutien qu'apporte la France.
La faute à qui? La faute aux Camerounais ou aux Français? Non,
il n'y a pas de faute pour l'instant. On essaie de lire les indicateurs.
Parce que vous trouvez en cela un problème?
Non, en cela, il y a des indicateurs qui montrent que les questions, les préoccupations des journalistes, je vous dis, ce genre de conférence de presse est préparée. On ne vient pas surprendre un chef d'État dans une conférence de presse. Et parfois, les préoccupations même sont connues. Donc, je crois que laissez-moi chuter rapidement. Léo, rapidement, je dis un mot pour finir. C'est pour dire que si on relit les questions posées par les journalistes, on peut conclure que la question de la crise anglophone n'était pas au centre des intérêts français au Cameroun. C'est pour l'instant mon observation.
Mais c'est les Français qui doivent venir résoudre notre problème?
Ce n'était pas une préoccupation de toute façon. C'était pour répondre à la première question.
Mais on vient chercher l'intérêt de la France au Cameroun. Est-ce que ce n'est pas au Camerounais Yes, your first take on what happened. Were you disappointed like him that the Anglophone crisis was not top on the agenda?
I was not disappointed.
Okay.
I expected that. And in fact, I was shocked that it was even passively mentioned because the French came with their interest. At the time when the anti-French sentiment is growing across Africa, at the time when Mali has totally cut ties on strategic issues with the French government, at the time when Equatorial Guinea is also, Burkina Faso is also having an agitation against the French rule, and Bolare, hundreds protested in Burkina Faso that Bolare should leave their rail station. So at the time when even Central African Republic is totally out of the French interest, at the time when the Chadians also rose up to say, okay, we want French to leave. At the time also when Russian government has deployed Sergei Lavrov to Africa to meet with some countries in Africa. And at the time when the Russian-Ukraine crisis has drained the French economy, there's a need to reboost the French economy. And that need is to come to Africa, come to Cameroon, and reach strategized ties and tell the CEMAC countries that, hey, we need much of your support, and don't go to the way of Mali, Burkina Faso, and to re-governize back the international relationship between France and Cameroon. So discussing on the Anglophone crisis was not and should not have been on Macron's visit to Cameroon. That was why during the press conference, as JSK puts it, you saw that it was highly planned press conference where you don't surprise the head of state anyhow. So those who are to ask questions somehow may have been picked. That, okay, you ask the first, you ask the second, you ask the third. I know that journalists were supposed to be objective and we are supposed to be objective, but the state visit of Emmanuel Macron made us to understand that it was more of the French interest. And remember, like what JSK said, when you look at the crowd that turned out in Yaoundé, I saw people trying to buy the sympathy that, oh, we are in support of our government in exchange for what may come ahead. Because after this visit, there may be a cabinet shake-up, there may be this. The question now, those early to put is, what role did you play during the visit of Emmanuel Macron to give a grand mobilization? I brought in my village people, I did this, I did that, I did that. So another important observation I noticed, and I want to say this was very good, was that the Prime Minister played his role as head of government. That was something very extraordinary, and many people had ask a question. Where is Ngongo to receive Macron? Where is Ayolo to receive Macron? Where is this? But when the prime minister, head of government, went there, it was a role well played, well respected. And that was a diplomatic move to tell the French government that Cameroon respect the constitution. And when you saw Pobia brought in the constitution, it was more to tell the French government that we are a sovereign state, we respect the constitution, we have sent our head of government to receive you, not other ministers, as the case should have been. Another issue that we observed was the fact that it was more of it became more of a franchised movement of campaign, where the Frank team happened to use it as an opportunity to start their political move, which is not bad, because every Cameroonian has a right to vie in for the position of a president of the republic. Whether your father has been the president or not, it is your constitutional right. So in a nutshell, Mr. Liu, what I saw within this visit, it was more of a French interest than a Cameroonian interest. If President Biya had gone to France, then I was expecting, or I would be expecting, that the Anglophone discussion will be discussed in France. But if Macron is coming, it means that Macron has seen the need, that the French government needs a lot of support. That's why you saw the Russian question came in. It was not by surprise. It was not by any other move. You saw the Russian-Ukraine position came in because the French government needs support from the home base, need logistical resources, need a lot to show their support and fight
we understand that Cameroon recently signed a military
accord with the Russian government.
Yes, but the President of the Republic made that very clear. He said that they were just renewing an existing partnership that has been on for some years, and that it got expired, so they just had to renew what has been existing. But let's come back to the Anglophone crisis. Were you surprised? Are you disappointed? Did you really think that President Emmanuel Macron was coming to Cameroon to address the Anglophone crisis?
No.
Okay.
The president of Cameroon already has a stand on the Anglophone crisis. And I know Macron will not come to add anything on what President Pobia has already taken his stand on.
Okay.
And definitely discussing the Anglophone crisis, and for those who were expecting Macron to come here discussing the Anglophone crisis, you are making a mistake of the millennium. French presidents are not displaced anyhow. They are displaced when the interest of France is at stake. If at all Macron was to step in Cameroon because of the Anglophone crisis, the heat of the crisis, where pictures, videos of the mayhem, the maiming, the killing of little children, military forces beheaded and their heads hung in streets. The images were very horrifying, terrific, and very, very bad. That anybody who has a conscience for a people, I think within that 2016, 2017, 2018, where corpses littered in the streets of Bamenda, in other places in Cameroon, in southern Cameroon, that moment, those images were enough to have pushed the French president to step into this country to make sure that those people don't continue dying. But unfortunately, he never stepped. We don't have terrifying images anymore. We don't have horrific images anymore. We don't have the images that can move a president within his closet to step out to bring rescue. Look at when he's coming to Cameroon. He's coming to Cameroon when things, like I call the French Empire in Africa, is collapsing, is losing its position. Considering the fact that Russia has started an Africa invasion. Remember, Russia has never been interested in Africa. But lately, Russia has taken an invasion in the continent of Africa. And that is the reason why France's position is threatened. The other day, U.S. sent special spies to monitor Russia's movements in Africa to make sure that Russia does not infiltrate places where U.S. interest is protected. I think Macron also is stepping into Africa to make sure that Russia does not go beyond the damage they have already caused, because damage has already been caused. The Central African Embassy and presidency right now is controlled by Russian forces. The other day, slightly, Ash Faustin Touadera escaped an assassination at the airport. Considering that the fact that recently assassins were also sent through Cote d'Ivoire to go and eliminate Assimi Goïta, Russian forces have been in Mali also to protect the interests of Russia in Mali. It tells you that France is in a tussle with Russia over its former colonies in Africa. And sitting in Paris to make speeches will not solve the problem. There was a need for a tete-a-tete discussion with presidents in the bedroom. And those things that are going to be discussed in the bedroom will never be placed in the public. Because actually, all what you saw in that press conference was to deceive gullible and vulnerable Cameroonians to feel like they are part of the decision making of what is happening. Oh, he said in the press conference. He said in the press conference. All what was said in the press conference is a bunch of hula ballo. It will serve the interest of no Cameroonian. What has been deliberated, what has been discussed can never come to the public. Even newspapers and journalists will never have an idea over it. It is the aftermath of this visitation that you will understand actually why Macron was in Cameroon. I keep telling people, when you see a French president leave France and come down to Africa, remember that the French economy is facing an imbalance. One, there is a price hike on basic commodities as well as fuel, and France will not carry that shock. Africa has to carry that shock. Africa has to carry, that's why they are stepping down here to Africa. The problem with us in Africa is that we are too carried with what people show us in the public. Somebody told me, matters that concerns a nation are never discussed in the public. So know that there was a need for this press conference to convince every African that they are part of what is happening. They are talking about regionalism, talking about conciliation, talking about dialogue. The dialogue that took place in this Cameroon, France was not blind about it. President Pobia, after that dialogue, flew to France to go and give a report there. And if I thought there was to be another dialogue or something essential, it was not going to be on air, because when the first dialogue was supposed to come, there was no press conference to announce the dialogue. It was deliberated in the bedroom and it came to the surface. So Cameroonians, wake up. What has been discussed as far as Macron's visit in Cameroon is concerned, none of you know. Journalists, ministers, governors do not know. It is in the bedroom. It will only manifest when the true nature of that thing comes out in the public. So Anglophone crisis to me is not a subject matter, because the amount of death, destruction, frustration, and even the lives of persons who have died in this country would have been strong enough to push Macron to come to this country by 2017, 2018. He's coming in 2022. We are talking about 6 years after children have stopped going to school. Mothers have been displaced, living in forests, using leaves as parts. People have been displaced out of Cameroon, living in Nigeria. Corpses litter the street of Ambe, the streets of Ngwa, the street of Ndop, the street of Mezam, the street of Ndian, the street of Maih. Humans were beheaded. Military forces their heads were hung in the street. It did not drive the passion of Macron to come to this country. It is now that almost everywhere things are dying off. Southwest is almost getting stable. Part of Northwest is getting stable. And you are telling us that Macron will come from Anglophone crisis. That is a dream of lasting peace.
Oui, tu voulais, avant que...
Oui, je pense qu'il dit des choses très intéressantes. C'est clair que ça ne pouvait même pas être intéressant pour le président français de s'attarder sur la crise anglophone. Ça, c'est clair. Maintenant, sur un président français, quand il se un président de la République, d'une puissance comme la France, quand il se déplace pour un pays comme le nôtre, il vient avec un message ou des messages qu'il doit passer. Il y a des messages qu'il doit passer aux dirigeants. Et ça, il y a des messages qu'il doit passer aux populations. Et il y a des messages qu'il doit passer à ses compatriotes. Donc, il y a 3 catégories de cibles pour un chef d'État comme celui-là. Et pour le cas du président français, je crois que tout le monde sait que aujourd'hui, au Cameroun, l'actualité tourne autour de l'alternance au sommet de l'État. Donc il va sans dire qu'une rencontre comme celle-ci avec le président Biya ne peut pas se faire sans que cela soit évoqué. Bien que cela ne soit pas mis en public, mais c'est impossible et tout le monde peut s'imaginer que si le président Macron est là, dans un entretien tête-à-tête avec le président Biya, il sera question de l'alternance aussi. Alors comment est-ce que nous décryptons ça? Il a raison de dire que ça ne va pas se dire en public dans une conférence de presse ou bien dans un discours. Mais il y a des façons de décrypter. Le diable est dans le détail. Comment décryptons-nous cela? on décrypte cela à travers des petits indicateurs. Je vous ai observé très bien la conférence de presse. Pour moi, le président français est venu ici pour dire à M. Biya, nous sommes partenaires depuis très longtemps stratégiques. Il a répété plusieurs fois, partenaires stratégiques. La Russie est un danger pour vous. Il est venu dire au peuple camerounais que la Russie est un danger pour le Cameroun.
Là, on a posé la question.
Il s'est penché pendant longtemps sur les méthodes de la Russie. Emmanuel Macron s'est penché pendant longtemps sur des méthodes, un peu comme une campagne pour dénigrer la Russie. Alors, et vous voyez très bien que la première question posée n'est pas anodine. C'est pour permettre à la France de dire aux Camerounais que vous ne devez pas être avec cette Russie, vous devez être avec nous. Deuxième question qui est posée par le journaliste français. Ça parle directement de l'alternance, si vous avez remarqué. Première question, Russie. Deuxième question, alternance. On demande au chef de l'État du Cameroun, est-ce qu'il va se représenter en 2025? Avec ces deux indicateurs-là, et il y a un troisième qui est arrivé, c'est la déclassification des archives. Les archives, Macron a promis, a fait une promesse forte, ça faisait partie des messages à passer au peuple camerounais. Parce que pour conquérir le Cameroun, la France doit soigner les plaies. Les blessures de l'indépendance. Oui, alors, je pense que pour finir, que ces trois messages-là, la France est venue avec ces messages et les a passés ce matin. Et on peut comprendre exactement pourquoi est-ce que Macron était venu au Cameroun.
Okay. Yes, but I want us to talk about what he hinted. It is true, he talked about regionalization, he talked about dialogue and conciliation. What do we get out of these pronouncements?
Yes, Leo. I'll start by saying that President Biya is an experienced, refined geopolitical strategist.
Okay.
For 6 years today, he has succeeded to isolate the Anglophone crisis from the international community. Anglophones all over the world have staged campaigns in front of the United Nations, African Union, embassies, and the international community has not moved an inch. They have ignored the crisis. The coming of Macron again was another strategy to show, a stratagem, not even strategy, to show the Anglophone community, the secessionists, those who are masterminding the crisis from abroad at home, that even France is not giving an eye or an ear to the Anglophone crisis. Then he went forward, as in the Grand National Dialogue, which was prescribed by the head of state and chaired by the Prime Minister, Dr. John Guti. At the end of the national dialogue, they said it was a continuous process because the dialogue process is still ongoing. And Macron mentioned regionalism, mentioned dialogue, mentioned reconciliation. He just went forward to authenticate the national dialogue that took place in this country, that it was genuine, it played its role, and they should continue in their role of implementing the regulations, the resolutions of the Grand National Dialogue, which was bringing in the regional councils, continuing with dialogue.
Which means forget about federalism.
Which means federalism has been dumped in
It's not an option.
Yes, it's not an option.
Of course.
It should be very clear. It was totally rejected during the Grand National Dialogue. You see, as a matter of fact, it's fundamentally true that Mr. Biya has stayed long in power, but what we forgot to know that he has gained a lot of experience, and we are seeing how he's putting his experience into play in the geopolitical strategy that took place today. So, Leo, the Anglophone crisis came up, it was just paraphrased. Security was paraphrased, and as I bet you, they discussed it, but it was not a priority and will not be a priority because Mr. Biya's strategy is to isolate the Anglophone crisis nationally and in the international community, and he has succeeded to do so.
Okay, he succeeded in doing so. Before his arrival, Cameroonians actually were waiting with him for him with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of curiosity. You saw the population that was gathered at the Nsimalen airport yesterday. But also, many persons talked about a possible meeting between the French president and the opposition. Do you see a disappointed opposition not given the opportunity to meet and discuss with the President Emmanuel Macron? And what was that meeting going to change after all?
You know that before the visit, this speculation came out, and also since Macron was coming with an intention, an interest, if Macron saw that if that had occurred, there would be a conflict of interest between him and the President of the Republic at the time when he wanted to solidify the French position in the heart of the President of the Republic for him not to move to the Russian angle. So he had to give up something. And what did he have to give? He had to give up not meeting with the opposition to gain confidence of the President of the Republic. And we should also understand here is that there have been several meetings with the French ambassador at the Unity Palace before this visit. And those meetings, we've not had the concrete resolutions of what came out during these meetings. And you remember, Bolloré is out of our port authority. And also remember that Sonara rehabilitation is taking place not at the interest of the French government. And also remember that other key investment areas which the French used to control in Cameroon is slipping off. So Macron coming to Cameroon now is like a businessman, the CEO, after sending his top advisor to negotiate a deal and he's not moving to, the boss decides to step in and to say, hey, this is me. I need this deal because I want us to move it, to continue our relationship. And that was why you saw Macron coming to Cameroon. And if you saw him coming to Cameroon, not talking with this opposition leader, is to tell you that Macron wanted and wants Mr. Biya to know that he is totally in support of him. And also, that was why he fully endorsed the Grand Measure National Dialogue Resolution and gave a KO to federalism by stating clearly that they will assist Cameroon in the decentralization process. That is to tell you that, Mr. Biya, I am your partner in this. So don't yield to the Russian angle, because Russia may come in through Sergei Lavrov, because Sergei Lavrov is in Africa. They may want to get to the opposition leader and want to renegotiate position. So if Macron had seen that the opposition party had a firm grip in Cameroon, he would have discussed with them. But the fact that the opposition, they don't have that power, that can, the power that Frundi had in 1990, where they could, you know, have the leverage to threaten the government of Pobia, then what business does he have to discuss with them without cementing his deal? In a nutshell, what we witness in Cameroon today and what history will hold is that Macron came as someone seeking to make amends and to tell Mr. Biya that, hey, I've had the MRC tendency in Europe and the government of Cameroon was not happy with it. And with that, there were some contracts and some business deals that were not going in their favor. So he had to come back to say, hey, I'm sorry, because in their closed doors, apologies must have, you know, he must have apologized to President Biya. That's sorry, but for us to have this is what we need to do. What Cameroonians need to understand is that the future of the nation is not in the hands of Paris. The future of the nation is not in the hands of the United Nations. The future of this country is in the hands of us, the youth, us Cameroonians. And if we want Cameroon to develop, we must shun away hatred, bigotry, tribalism, regionalism. What we need in Cameroon is a movement for change, like what happened in 1990. A single political party cannot and will not undo what is happening now. That all these political parties that say we want a change in electoral code, we want to go as an independent force, they will not be able to challenge the status quo, because you are fighting against a government that has the backing of the international community, that has the military, that has everything. So a single political party cannot do this. So what they do? They can come together as a people and form the force that can do what they think they want to do. With that in mind, we will just be crying foul. Remember that Macron came, and as he has gone back with French interests, and a lot of money is going back with contracts that will be signed in the days ahead. All those contracts you will hear that they have signed contract, construction of this, construction of that. Look at the contractors. Who are those contractors? This is what they do. They take contract in Cameroon and they award them, and we pay in dollars. And when we pay in euro, they take out the euro, convert it to CFA, and pay us give to us as loan in CFA, and we pay the high interest. So what we need to do is to ensure that we come up with a system that is open. That is, we are not French, we are not Russia, we are interest-based. Whoever comes for the interest of Cameroonians,
Yeah,
welcome.
but exactly what President Paul Biya tried to explain, that they were not, President Macron himself said that Cameroon was not what they call chasse gardée. Yes, and that they were open to, they were supposed to step up their game if they want to meet the competitive nature of other nations. They said that, but Apostle Ambe Valentine Ngwa. Now, if you say you were not surprised by the known focalization of the Anglophone crisis in the discussions between President Paul Biya and President Emmanuel Macron, do you think maybe another President Biden or the British Prime Minister would take a special interest in the Anglophone crisis? And if, to a greater extent, they're ignoring, what should we start telling ourselves?
Yes, first and foremost, those presidents you are mentioning have already come to this country.
Biden has not come.
Biden came through the U.S. Senate. British Prime Minister came through Scotland Commonwealth. Macron came through and Francophonie, so they have been here. The reaction of those bodies will tell you what the presidents over those particular organizations think about the crisis. But as Scotland came to Cameroon as under the Commonwealth, headed by the Queen of England and also the British Prime Minister, she came practically with the ideology of what England has concerning the crisis. La Francophonie, the same thing. The U.S. Senate has been acting and playing to the gallery. It's the same thing. So if Biden comes here, Boris Johnson comes here, Biden comes here, Macron comes here, there's no change. So I get sometimes confused when people begin to feel like Macron will come and do better than what Francophonie was to do. When we were to separate Sudan, the UN Secretary General did not come here. It was UN Secretary, Under Secretary of State that managed the issue here, which means the UN came here through the man. So if Scotland came here and then Yaoundé and carried refugees back to England, and then La Francophonie came here, collected, go Yaoundé and went back, and then US has been writing drama since from 6 years ago till now, you are expecting which of the presidents to come and do something here? There's nothing serious. Let's forget about that. So Macron has been here. Macron is not coming now. Their reaction towards the crisis tells us the way they think about the crisis, and they already have a stand concerning the crisis. I also saw an interview, the British said, don't go and remind us of our sins of yesterday, we don't want to hear it. The British man does not want to tell them the crime they committed many years ago, so they don't want to hear anything concerning the Anglophone crisis. So that's why we are where we are today. Further, you say, what do we think we can do now that these international bodies? Mr. Lou have been singing the same solution over and over. We need a sincere dialogue in this country amongst ourselves. And this dialogue has to begin with us Anglophones first. We need to talk to ourselves. Before we leave the house to have a common goal to go outside, let us have something we are standing on. Because as it stands now, the division amongst us is a serious problem. We have a clash within the house. We cannot take this clash in the house to go and face a common enemy outside. Let us settle the scores in the house first. So the first dialogue is not going to be national dialogue. It's going to be Southern Cameroon's dialogue. It should not hold in Boya. It should not hold in Bamenda. We can even move here and go to Congo and sit as Southern Cameroonians. You are a federalist. You are a unionist. You are a confederationist. You are also a secessionist. Let us sit on the table. You will convince us. That's democracy. You won't kill us to follow you. You won't beat me to follow you. You won't cut my fingers to follow you. You will convince me to see how good your system of government is. Then I will drop mine to follow you. That starts within us in the house. If the federalists can sit in the meeting, secessionists convince all of us, then we are leaving that meeting. Even the federalists have become a secessionist, the confederation have become a secessionist, and equally the unionists will become a secessionist. But if the secessionists is not able to convince us, and the federalists convince us, all of us will drop our ideology and follow federalism. So when we are leaving that room, we are not living as federalists, confederationists, secessionists, or unionists. We are going out as one man. That's the first dialogue. When we are done with that now, we come back now and sit with a common voice and say, this is what we want to present to you. By so doing, it doesn't bring the split among us.
The strength of the enemy is the division of the opposition. Just like the strength of the devil is the ignorance of the believer. And this is where we are facing a serious challenge. Once we are done, we are going to have another dialogue now. This dialogue, we are not going to that dialogue with different philosophies. The man who was a secessionist is talking federalism. The man who was a confederationist is talking federalism. The man who was a unionist is talking, all of us have come to a consensus. When the enemy realizes that we have a common ground we are standing on, they will now see a need for them to have a tete-a-tete discussion with us. We may still go on that table of discussion with the federation, and they convince us that unity is the way out. And this is when we see what they are saying, we can all succumb. If we go there and convince them to, because it is the force of argument, it's not the argument of force. We go on that table and convince them to that, okay, you see this thing like this, it is federation. And this is the reason why we see federation. Because why? We are doing everything at the end for the common good of every individual. When you become egocentric, self-centered, and you may not even see the good that is in the other person. Those who are holding on to unity, if federalists convince them enough, they may drop unity. I watched a movie how drug lords will send guys to go and kill on their behalf. And then one of the drug lords said, for how long are we going to be sending our children abroad to go and study while we send other children to go and die? When he came and the guys picked the gun, he said, drop down your guns. He said, one thing you must know is this. We will send you guys to go and kill, but our children are studying abroad. So whenever somebody sends you with a gun to go and kill, tell him to send his own child first. You will see their reaction. That is a force of argument. You were able to convince them to drop their philosophy. That anger, that bitterness, that animosity died because people came to a place of mental reasoning. I think when guns begin to smoke in a nation, it means minds have failed. I repeat. And this is where all of us as Cameroonians supposed to come. Unity might not only be the way out. Federation might be the way out. Confederation might be the way out. What are we looking? We are looking for a system of government where we're not going to have the snare of marginalization anymore. We're not going to have the fear of rejection anymore. We're not going to have the intimidation of domination anymore. If at all this thing can bring a common ground to all of us, that everybody will enjoy the national cake without any intimidation, is going to help all of us. The time for who I am is past. It's a time for who we are. The time for who I am is over. It's a time for who we are. Who we are is more important than who I am. Who I am is self-centeredness. Who I am is egocentric. Who I am is my pride. But who we are. Who we are.
Okay.
Who we are.
Now, was this also an opportunity for the President of the Republic to also tell doubting Thomases that he was fit for the job till 2025?
Oh yes, in every political dispensation there is always room for reconciliation. I think Mr. Abia was very eloquent enough to tell the international community and the Cameroonian people that he is constitutionally in place. He did not usurp power. He was elected through universal suffrage by the majority of Cameroonians, and he is the president of all Cameroonians. And that his mandate will be ending in 3 or 4 years' time, as he said, and that when time comes, the constitution will determine whether he can still stand or not. That's a proof of confidence. That's a proof of a father. That's a proof of a man who is the umbrella, taking care of all the children, whether you voted for him or you didn't vote for him, or whether you are a secessionist or you are a Boko Haram or whatsoever. He manifested that power of leadership over his people, that he is the master of this nation. He holds the destiny of this country in his hands. So he was an expression of confidence, an expression of assurance, an expression of a guarantor. So I think what he manifested today was very great. And the question was a provocative one. because they wanted to repeat what happened when François Hollande came, and his famous statement that Dieu qui au pouvoir qui peut pas celui qui veut, and they came again with that kind of a tricky question, and I think the person who asked that question got the right answer, and I think he was in his right portion of answering that question because he put the square peg in the square hole. Cameroon is a state of law, and you remember that when they first asked the question to Macron, Macron started by respecting the sovereignty of every state. He said they respect the sovereignty of every state, and Russia is a sovereign state that has attacked Ukraine. That is another sovereign state. Because the question that the journalists from CRTV asked him was very tricky, because it was like, okay, see the way you people have mobilized to go and support Ukraine in this war situation with Russia. Why don't you do the same with the crisis that we are going on in Africa? Or just like, why don't you also come and... But it was like very clear. If there's an Anglophone crisis, it's an internal crisis. Cameroon is a sovereign state, and they respect the sovereignty of Cameroon. So Cameroonians should be able to step up and solve their problems by themselves. But if it was like it's Nigeria or another country that attacked Cameroon, okay, they would have come to support the weaker nation because they respect the sovereignty of every state. So I think it was a manifestation of grandeur from his head of state, from the head of state today, His Excellency Paul Biya, and I laud him for that.
Yes, but should Cameroonians today understand that, you know, there are speculations of anticipated elections, the president is sick, the president cannot no longer. When you heard the president deliver, what was he telling Cameroonians? I'm still in charge.
I think that I concluded by saying that it was a manifestation of grandeur. We saw in a man, we understood that the media has been diverting the minds of so many Cameroonians. The social media has been thwarting the thinking of so many Cameroonians. They used to give us the impression that the man is in Vomeka, he cannot even talk again. It is Ngwa who is ruling the state. I think that Cameroonians saw today that Mr. Biya has the command button of this country, and he said he has 3 or 4 years to go, and I believe from the strength that he manifested, he is going to finish his mandate very healthy, strong and powerful to be able to continue leading this nation with the wisdom and charisma that is embedded in him.
Okay, Jessica, how can France help Cameroon today? We know that the French president talked about the need for France to come in the domain of agriculture and a host of others, but he also said that there was need for them to diversify the investments.
The question can be asked the other way. How can Cameroon help France?
Yes, the day we go to France, the day we go to France,
how can Cameroon help France?
Ask that question.
And I think this is the real aim of the visit of Emmanuel.
We saw
Macron.
Cameroonians anxiously waiting for his coming. So
France is in need of help.
Okay.
In the international scene, they need a help. They need a help in the crisis that is going on in Russia, between Russia and Ukraine. They need a help with the food crisis. You know, they need a help.
Even to restore Bolare.
They need a help even to restore their authority in the francophone of Africa. Donc je pense que il faudrait qu'on voit en cette visite une opération de charme, une opération de séduction. Et si on quitte cette lecture-là, on risque de se tromper sur ce pour lequel Emmanuel Macron est venu ici. Alors, je voudrais penser que lorsque la France vient, et l'apôtre l'a dit tout à l'heure, au début de ses propos, lorsque un président français vient dans un pays africain, un pays qui fut une colonie, pour ainsi dire, auparavant, c'est pour résoudre les problèmes français. Ce n'est pas pour résoudre les problèmes camerounais. Alors, c'est à nous de savoir exactement comment saisir cette opportunité pour résoudre les nôtres. C'est-à-dire que saisir l'opportunité de sa présence pour résoudre les nôtres. Ou alors pour trouver des pistes de solutions pour les nôtres. Alors, si nous sommes passifs et si nous ne posons rien sur la table, en contrepartie de ce qu'on nous demande, alors je pense qu'on risque de passer à côté. Regardez par exemple l'attitude de l'opposition, et vous avez posé la question de savoir l'opposition n'a pas été au centre des préoccupations de la France. Moi je voudrais vous demander, cette opposition-là, qu'on a vu en France se mobiliser en accusant Emmanuel Macron d'être l'auteur de certaines pratiques au Cameroun, cette opposition-là, est-ce que vous l'avez vu ici au Cameroun, depuis l'annonce de l'arrivée d'Emmanuel Macron, se manifester pour exprimer quoi que ce soit, afin d'attirer l'attention de la France? Est-ce que vous n'avez pas l'impression que ce silence-là est assez parlant, le silence de l'opposition camerounaise? J'attire l'attention en passant qu'il faudrait analyser tous les indicateurs autour de cette visite. Vous n'avez pas vu un seul mouvement. Je vous dis, quand M. Biya va en France, vous voyez l'opposition aller même jusqu'à l'hôtel de M. Biya, hein, pour perturber son sommeil. Lorsque François Mitterrand, excusez-moi, je viens de Emmanuel Macron se déplace dans un espace public, vous voyez l'opposition camerounaise se déplacer pour aller le rencontrer et pour attirer son attention. Mais comment se fait-il que ce même François Mitterrand vient à la rencontre de M. Biya, dont les deux personnes qui sont tout le temps indexées sont donc dans le territoire camerounais, et vous ne voyez aucune manifestation de cette opposition-là? C'est un indicateur. Vous savez, on ne peut pas lire dans la boule de cristal, on ne peut qu'interpréter à travers les signes et les indicateurs. Alors, allons analyser ces indicateurs pour comprendre. Il a dit tout à l'heure, et moi j'ai aimé cette façon de voir les choses, il y a des non-dits dans une rencontre. On peut penser que l'opposition camerounaise n'a pas été rencontrée, pourtant elle a été même, elle s'est assise dans la préparation, peut-être, hein, je dis, c'est une évocation, c'est une allusion que je fais sans avoir de preuves, mais c'est une possibilité. Parce que le silence de l'opposition durant le silence par rapport à ce qu'on aurait pu voir lorsque, au regard du contexte sociopolitique dans lequel M. Emmanuel Macron arrive au Cameroun, ce silence-là, cette passive, cette nonchalance-là, j'allais même dire indifférence, parce que vous allez me dire que M. Fundi a fait une déclaration et que M. Kamto a fait un communiqué, ainsi de suite. Mais ce n'est pas suffisant quand un pays sort d'une période post-électorale et qu'un monsieur comme Macron, qui a été cité, je veux dire la France, cité comme étant un adversaire de la démocratie, comme étant un adversaire de la paix, et comme étant celui qui entretenait certaines pratiques au Cameroun, et il n'y a aucune manifestation, ni de la société civile, ni de l'opposition camerounaise. Alors pourquoi voulez-vous que Emmanuel Macron s'intéresse dans cette opposition, hein, qui ne sait pas faire foule, qui ne sait pas s'intéresser? Pourquoi? Alors qu'il gagnerait beaucoup mieux à faire fi de leur existence pour continuer avec ceux qui ont la force et le pouvoir. Parce qu'il s'agit véritablement de retrouver la place que la France recherche, la place de leader, la place de l'autorité dans la sous-région de l'Afrique francophone. Donc, je pense que la France recherche le soutien du Cameroun. La France veut reconquérir l'agriculture camerounaise. Aujourd'hui, bientôt, on va entrer en plein fouet dans une crise alimentaire, peut-être en une autre pareille. La France aura besoin du Cameroun. C'est ici qu'il y a encore des terres arabes, c'est ici qu'il y a encore des possibilités, n'est-ce pas? Donc, et Emmanuel Macron n'a pas caché cela pour dire que ça les intéresse, n'est-ce pas, l'agriculture. Donc je crois que c'est la France qui a le plus d'intérêt dans cette visite et non le Cameroun.
Good evening to you all. I'm writing from Kumba. My name is Michael. French government is a plot coup, okay? I don't know what you mean by that, Mr. Liu. I don't need to tell you that there are people who sing President's praise despite his shortcomings. Good evening, sir. Don't you think the questions were pre-arranged, okay? Good evening, Mr. Liu. Kudos to Pastor Ambe. Dialogue should indeed begin with the Anglophones themselves. Christopher is writing from Bamenda. Greetings, sir. Thanks for the wonderful lessons you both are giving to the world. More grace to you all, sir. Where is Dr. Nick? I have not heard from him. Thanks. Brohida is writing from Fundong. Dr. Nick is in his house. Greetings, Mr. Liu. What an interesting topic you have for today. Great job to all the panelists on board. You meant high five to Apostle Ambe Valentine. You always hit the nail on the head. If we can have 4 Apostle Ambe Valentine in this country, this nation will be a better one. Manga Collins writing there. Good evening to you, Collins. Good evening to you, sir. you and all of you in the studio, I'm Jude Bin, writing from Douala, Bonaberi. I think the reason why Macron's visit is mainly for France's economy interests are because Russia has started gaining influence in some African countries. Why would Macron and Paul Biya talk more about the war in Ukraine and neglecting the war back at home? Paul Biya was earlier informed on how to tackle those questions that were being asked to him. Okay? Good evening, Kum and members in the house, very intelligent members on the panel. I do appreciate what Jarvis and Apostle Ambe said. They said it all. How can I get Jarvis's number? Jean is writing from Yaoundé. Hello to you, Mr. Kum, and all of you in the studio. I totally agree with Jarvis and Apostle Ambe. Enjoying the program from Boya. Innocent Barozil for writing there. Good evening to you, my friend writing from Gabon. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all in the studio. If I was the only Cameroonian living in this country, I would have said that away from France, we are tied to them. But Ruben is writing from Kombe. Paddy, the best teller in Bamenda, says, Mr. Kum, this was an opportunity for Cameroonians to hear their president promise an end of hostility in this country, but he was instead stretching his ideas of dialogue and reconciliation to another country with his counterpart, Mr. Macron, instead of facing his own country. Paddy Brown, writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all the intellectuals in the studio. Personally, I think we Cameroonians, including the head of state, know what to do to solve the crisis in the northwest and southwest. We do not need Macron to come and tell us what to do. Jarvis is writing from Equatorial Guinea. Good evening, Mr. Liu. And we are carefully selected panelists. What we should know is that colonialists have permanent interest to continue to keep Africa underdeveloped, dependent, and we should not be overcarried by body language of the visiting president. Ngole Hene is writing from Limbe. Good evening, Mr. Liu and panelists. Macron talking about regionalization, conciliation, and dialogue is just using words that will make Anglophones feel good, but not making the situation in the northwest and southwest good. Sonny White is writing from Boya. Mr. Liu, good evening. Is this not witchcraft? President Macron is visiting Yaoundé and the people of Bamenda are observing Ghost Town. Please help us educate the people of Bamenda to resume their activities because Macron will leave the country tomorrow 8 a.m. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Please send me the numbers of the panelists of yesterday. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Panelists, please can you explain to some of us why you people call the head of state of France simply as Emmanuel Macron, but you call the president of Cameroon always as His Excellency? No, there's also His Excellency Emmanuel Macron. Good evening, Mr. Liu and your panelists. I love your program, and we really okay. I don't know who asked you not to call him. Wow. Yes, but no, let's look at what some persons think. They think that this is, when you look at Emmanuel Macron, do you also think, like some persons see, that he sees the Anglophone crisis as an issue that should be sorted out in Cameroon?
Of course.
Should we still be looking at the international community?
Let me give you a long list. Moussa Faki of the African Union was in Cameroon at the peak of the crisis. He went back with a golden statue, and the killing on both ends continued. Patricia Scotland was in Cameroon for Commonwealth. The killing continued. La Francophonie was in Cameroon. The killing continued. We had the visit of the United Nations Secretary General, not another secretary, Antonio Guterres. The killings continued. The U.S. Senate, constant write-up, the killing continued. The French ambassador too, the killing continued. Thibault Nagy, the killing continued. It is only the Pope that has not come to Cameroon, and Jesus' physical presence that has not come to Cameroon. So depending on the international community to resolve this crisis, as Apostle Ambe said, it is an error of monumental proportion. I queue in total with Apostle Ambe, the problem of resolving this crisis is because we have a crisis within a crisis and another crisis within a crisis. Why do I say so? We have the Anglophone crisis within the Anglophone crisis. Now we have the Anglophone crisis within the Anglophone elite crisis, struggling to position themselves and not wanting to make way for a new elite. So for us to resolve this conflict, therefore, there is first a need to identify the major problem. Where does it weigh more? It weighs more on the divide among Anglophones, the bigotry, the hatred, the insult among Anglophones. So when Anglophones, we come as a people, sit down and use the force of argument than the argument of force and resolve and have a common front to come and now pick the main problem, I think then we can resolve the problem. Let me state, for example, if President Paul Biya in his comfort just get up today and say, okay, there should be 10-state federation, we'll still have problems. We'll still have divide. We'll still have the total cacophony we have. Northwest, southwest will still play. Why? Because there have not been a genuine dialogue from what partake within the Anglophone era post 1961. It is still there. We have not addressed the root cause of the post-1961 Northwest dominance within the federal system. So it breeds divide within the what we experience now. So when we have a dialogue within Anglophone, the separatists, the confederalists, the unionists, and also those who don't have a position, we sit together. Let's call it wherever location, whether Ghana or whatever, area that suit us comfortably. Let's discuss why and ask one key question. Why do you want federation? Why do you want secession? Why do you want confederation? You will see that all their response will be the same. I want it because I want good governance. I want it because I want a semi-autonomy where our culture can be preserved. All of them will say the same thing. But now why the position changed? They are now looking at it from a different position. Ask them now, okay, can we now look at what we can agree commonly on, focus on what we have agreed here most? Let's handle this. And now before we start looking at where we disagree, that's where dialogue continues. But we have not asked the question why. The Northwest man, the Southwest man, and whoever we are divided, totally hating ourselves for no reason. There's a policy where the Ethiopian government used, and that was the policy where Ambe used in 2018. And the policy which was an Ameri word, McDermott. McDermott simply means that making use of the best of our past to build a new culture and a new society that will strive on the foundation of tolerance, love, and civility for a new society and a new culture. That is McDermott. And McDermott, he said, strive on the foundation of justice, fairness, accountability. Until we Cameroonians, Anglophone Cameroonians, can go back to that policy of McDermott, meaning making use of the best of our past. What is the best of our past we had as Anglophone? The best of our past we had was that respect for the elderly, the respect of the force of argument and not the argument of force. Make use of those McDermott. And now we can, when we make use of this McDermott, we will build a new society, a new culture that reflects the current reality, the existing reality. After building this new culture that moved to the existing reality, we will now look at the aspect of tolerance, and that aspect of tolerance, and there will be civility until we focus on what unites us more than what divides us. Then we are still playing a ping-pong game. Whether you give us federation today, some people will not drop their arms because their faction will still be divided. When you give us decentralization, some people will still not drop their arms. But when all these people who are fighting come together on the table and discuss, you will have 90% of people dropping their arms, at least just 10%, which is normal, that at least 10% will never drop their arms.
Okay. We'll never drop the arms. We'll end the program this evening looking at what is happening in Womb, chieftain of Menchum division. We understand that some Muslims were attacked, 5 of them killed. The day before yesterday, there was a retaliation with some indigents of Womb, Arams, that were attacked and wounded. Today morning, the population came out to resist and pass a very strong message that they will not stand and watch their brothers and sisters attacked carelessly by this community. And we hear that the attacks continue today. I struggled to get to some elites of Menchum division to talk so that they could be part of this program. Most of them agreed that they were going to talk to us, but later declined talking. I don't know what the reasons for their declination, but we have to talk from our perspective. So don't blame our panelists who will be talking from this angle. We made efforts, frantic efforts the whole day. I spoke with some persons, I would not want to cite them, who actually promised to talk during this program, but later on said they were not going to talk. I don't know whether their hands are tied or not. Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa, is the population suffering from a minute group of extremists on both sides?
Yes, definitely. They used to say the tongue is the smallest member of the body, but it ignites fire that can burn an entire forest. Sometimes the crisis we encounter in life is not caused by a group of persons, but when individuals cause crisis, other persons become victims of those crises. For instance, if you go to the World War, it was just a single individual that shot down a duke, and then from there the whole world was plunged into serious trouble. And the story continues. The Anglophone crisis we are facing today, also a group of persons also got angry, reacted, and then the wind blew across the entire nation. It has always been like that. To me, the case in Agam is a very serious case of some self-centered individuals who have their personal differences, and now they are transferring the differences to the entire population of that particular area. I watched the fun of Agam this evening. I think it's in Babli, they call it what? I think the second. It was giving a report that the scandals we also have on social media is an exaggeration of what is happening actually on ground. But nevertheless, we saw people who died, both from the people of Agam and also the Mororos.
No, Mororos died. Agams, they were wounded.
They were wounded. Okay, they were only wounded. Because I saw people who sleeping on the ground from the Agam who had machetes on somewhere around their neck or their eye. I thought the person was dead. Anyway, Mr. Leo, I don't believe the persons who are even dying in this crisis are practically involved. They are just victims of the crossfire. The individuals in question have their personal beef personally, then they are now bringing almost everybody into the challenge. My worry is when we cause problems like this, first and foremost, we are in a very delicate society. Our Cameroon system is very fragile, especially from the Northwest. The amount of people who have died there are enough. If the Anglophone crisis is not clean in the Northwest, community crisis clean in the Northwest, that means even if the Anglophone crisis stops, we will still have people dying because a lot of things have sparked up in the Northwest that are causing the dying of people. And this is the reason why we are trying to talk to the people to understand that despite the differences you have to ask yourself some sincere questions. Why am I engaged into this thing? Because I know many people are fighting because they saw a group fighting. I've seen others who are fighting because they were told why they have to fight. They don't have particular reason why they have to fight. Why should you fight? You should ask a reason why you should fight. And that's the reason why most people are into certain wars today without knowing why they are fighting. You as a man from Bororo, you are going to attack somebody from Agam, you are attacking him under what grounds? You from Agam, you are retaliating under what grounds? I saw this morning people gathered, mothers, children, fathers at the grandstand in Womb, complaining, and then the bees were trying to hold them to control. Security force were the one trying to hold them and put them under control. They took stick and said this nonsense will come to an end. That is a retaliation because they were also provoked. Nobody can be provoked and you expect him to stay quiet. So what we are trying to do here on this media is to make people understand that the people from Bororo are Cameroonians. The people from Agam are Cameroonians. Before you ever started this war, you've lived as brothers for many years. The people from Agam have enjoyed cow from Bororos, and the Bororos have also enjoyed friendship and other things from the people of Agam. Where was that once good relationship, that peace, that serenity that existed in that community? What has brought this animosity, this strife, this bitterness amongst the people? Go back on your drawing board, search and find out what has brought this division among you people, and see the need to resolve this problem rather than killing yourself, because killing people doesn't solve problems. If people were to die, if killing people were to solve problems, then the Anglophone problem would have been solved ere long. I am sure we're supposed to have read within the horizon to understand that killings doesn't solve problem. People have died in the Anglophone crisis and the problem has not stopped till date.
we should be able to understand and learn from lessons in life. That's our counsel. We are not in argument, we are not around womb right now, but we are giving our own opinion as analysts to make you understand that the fight will lead you people to nowhere. And we are pleading you people to come to a place where you can be able to reason yourselves together and put an end to this dilemma.
Okay. It's been recurrent. Do you see a hidden hand instigating the violence, not wanting people to live in peace and harmony, especially in the Menchum division? Because how do we explain that it is known that any attack may attract a reprisal, but we still find persons attacking?
Yes, Leonard, let me digress a little bit. Farmer-grazier conflict in the Northwest is as old as pre-independence. There is this uneasy calm that reigns between indigenes and the Bororo people, or the Fulanis. You know, the Bororo and the Fulanis, they are nomadic people, so they are settlers who came and the indigenes gave them land. And they always live, they don't live in the center of the town, they live in the outskirts of the villages. And it's not a coincidence that we are going through this political upheaval in the Northwest and Southwest region now, where secessionists, they use now these outskirts as their hideouts. And publicly, most often we hear when our military are able to lay hands on some of these top secessionists, they say it clearly that they did this through the collaboration of the people. And considering that most of these secessionists, they now hide in the backyard of the Fulanis, the military, or we are just speculating that the military has been using them as informants. So this creates a situation of animosity between the Fulanis and the indigenes. And there's this uneasy calm that is reigning in the air. So most often when the military lays hand on most of these secessionists, they accuse the Fulanis, whom they use their backyards now in the outskirts as hideout, as to have shown their hideout to the military. So it has happened in Ambe, it happened in Gabu, it is happening in Boyo, in Bafut, in Menchum. So it is something that is going on now, that we must find a way to create that win-win situation, to bring back confidence between the Bororos, the Fulanis, and the indigenes. So as a matter of fact, that is the bone of contention. That is where confidence does not exist again between the Fulanis and the indigenes. So I think that the son of Agam, that I know him and I trust his leadership, he can be able to create that platform where he and the Ado of the Fulanis in Menchum can sit and dialogue and find a way forward, because it is high time we stop killing ourselves. It's high time we stop destroying innocent lives for no good reason, because at the end of the day, we are complaining that we are marginalized, but we are showing the international community, we are showing the whole world how barbaric we are, how we can kill ourselves. Then we can't complain when the stranger comes to kill us. So I think we need to sit and start the dialogue right inside the house, like Apostle Ambe proposed with the support of Mr. Jarvis. We need to sit and dialogue amongst ourselves, get a consensus, and have a way forward before we can even put on the table in any platform for us to start negotiating or discussing with any other third party.
Ok, Jiska, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire parce qu'il y a toujours la tension à Oum au moment où nous parlons. Est-ce qu'il faut que les élites traditionnelles, politiques, administratives s'engagent de plus en plus dans ce qui se passe, et surtout du côté des Mbororo? Il faut qu'ils rappellent à leurs enfants que ce n'est pas un attaquant, ce n'est pas ceci.
Je voudrais commencer par dire que c'est vraiment désolant qu'on en arrive à ce genre de situation qui pourrait faire l'objet d'une prévention de la part de l'État du Cameroun. C'est l'État qui a la force pour restaurer la paix, c'est l'État qui a la force pour maintenir la paix. Et les populations, parfois, quand elles sont elles-mêmes impliquées dans un conflit, n'ont pas les armes pour faire cesser le conflit. J'ai fait en 2017 un voyage d'investigation journalistique dans la région de l'extrême nord sur la guerre contre la secte terroriste Boko Haram. Et j'ai vu là-bas comment est-ce que l'armée camerounaise essayait de mettre sur pied des mécanismes pour prévenir les conséquences de la guerre, parce qu'il y a toujours des conséquences. Lorsque les gens, à un moment donné, ne peuvent plus avoir accès aux champs, ils ne peuvent plus avoir leur bétail, ils ne peuvent plus avoir accès à l'eau, parce que pour aller à la source d'eau, il y a peut-être une bande armée cachée quelque part, comme c'est le cas à Gouzdavriket, à la limite avec le Nigeria, à l'extrême nord. En ce moment-là, les hommes se regardent et commencent à voir des défauts dans les yeux de l'autre. Il y a des suspicions qui naissent. On commence à attribuer à l'autre la cause de son malheur. Et en essayant de traquer ceux que ce gouvernement appelle les terroristes, à tort ou à raison, ils doivent penser, n'est-ce pas, à prévenir ce type de conflit parce que ça pourrait se multiplier. Vous voyez les Maures dont vous parlez, j'en ai rencontré une bonne partie pendant un voyage de presse également dans l'ouest du Cameroun. Ils sont déjà nombreux dans l'ouest du Cameroun. Et quand ils arrivent dans l'ouest du Cameroun, ils occupent des terres qui appartiennent aux gens, parfois de manière pacifique. Mais à un moment donné, il peut y avoir un conflit d'intérêts sur des besoins vitaux, des nécessités vitales, telles que la nourriture, telles que le bétail, ainsi de suite. Et des situations comme celle-ci peuvent déclencher à tout moment. J'ai le sentiment que cette situation devrait plutôt nous permettre de comprendre la difficile mission et la difficile tâche qu'il y a autour de ce qu'on appelait la reconstruction du Nozo. Ce n'est pas simplement une reconstruction, une reconstruction physique, c'est une reconstruction, je crois, psychosomatique qu'il faudrait mener. Maintenant, la question de savoir comment faire pour arrêter ça. Pour moi, l'armée et les forces de maintien de l'ordre sont les premières personnes interpellées. Vous ne pouvez pas arrêter un conflit où les gens se tuent, se coupent à la machette si vous avez des mains nues. Vous ne pouvez pas arrêter si vous n'avez pas les moyens de pression, les moyens de dissuasion. Je crois qu'une fois encore, l'armée doit jouer ce rôle. Je refuse qu'on pense tout de suite qu'il y a derrière ceci une main de sécessionnistes ou bien une main de militaires. Ce sont, à mon avis, des conséquences, des effets collatéraux de ce qui s'est passé de la guerre qui est menée dans cette partie du Cameroun. Lorsque cette guerre sera terminée, il faudra donc maintenant essayer de travailler sur ces effets-là pour restaurer les esprits des gens, pour restaurer les valeurs culturelles. Jarvis a évoqué les valeurs culturelles, par exemple, ce qu'on devrait retrouver, mais il faut restaurer ça parce que tout est parti avec les crépitements des armes, tout est parti avec le feu, tout est parti avec les cendres, tout est parti. Il faut restaurer tout cela pour qu'on puisse retrouver la paix totale. C'est ce que je peux penser à ce sujet, mais je continue à dire ceci. Lorsque les élites qui ont été, il faut le dire, lorsque cette guerre a commencé, je faisais partie des gens qui avaient indexé les élites. Les élites sont coupables, élites politiques, élites religieuses, bref, les élites de cette partie du Cameroun sont coupables à tous les niveaux. Ils ont vu la situation se dégrader petit à petit, ils n'ont jamais rien fait. Ils se sont retrouvés dans des cercles où ils pouvaient porter haut la cause et peut-être anticiper sur certaines actions. Ils n'ont rien fait. Ils se sont plutôt contentés des récompenses de leur position sans se demander ce que les populations à l'arrière-pays pouvaient ressentir, pour comment est-ce qu'ils pouvaient se sentir face à certains abus. J'ai vécu une scène, c'est l'opportunité que vous me donnez, Léo, de partager ici, une scène que j'ai vécue alors que j'étais étudiant à l'université de Buea, et j'avais attiré l'attention de mes camarades à cette époque-là sur cette affaire. Je me retrouvais dans le bureau d'un administrateur à Buea, et une maman est venue pour s'établir un document. Elle ne parlait ni français, elle ne parlait ni anglais, elle parlait pidgin. Et la secrétaire qui était là était une francophone. Et moi, je venais aussi pour rencontrer...
le secrétaire ou à l'université de Boya?
Non, je ne veux pas citer les lieux, je vous dis que c'est dans un bureau administratif, quelque chose que moi j'ai vécu. Alors c'est une scène qui démontre à suffisance comment est-ce que la frustration, elle n'est pas venue d'un coup, elle est montante, elle commence petit à petit et puis elle grimpe. Alors cette dame qui est venue, cette maman qui est venue, a parlé en pidgin, et la secrétaire, qui comprenait le pidgin, qui comprenait l'anglais, a fait afin de ne pas comprendre ce que la maman disait.
Ok.
Bon, alors ceci montre que, laissez-moi finir cette histoire, à la fin, la dame n'a pas été servie proprement. J'ai dû intervenir moi-même en traduisant ce qu'elle disait pour réaliser que la dame qui était secrétaire pouvait écouter cette maman. Écoutez, quand vous êtes dans votre territoire, dans votre ville, dans votre pays...
Vous rentrez dans l'histoire. Non, alors, non, on parle de...
C'est pour dire que les élites... Pour chuter, c'est pour dire que les élites ont perçu ça depuis longtemps. Et ils auraient pu prévenir. Et ils peuvent encore, à présent, jouer un rôle capital dans la résolution de ce problème.
On a 15 minutes. Il y a encore des gens qui doivent parler, non?
Vous allez terminer.
Yes, you have called family back home. Are they worried? And do you understand what is happening?
They're very worried, especially my mother, who is still in Way Village. She's very worried because of the fact that it is a situation where people make use of and start attacking each other. And the cause of this actually is that, from what I was told, is that some 4 persons were killed because of a cow theft that occurred, but these people were killed, and there was that retaliation without knowing whether they were actually people who carried out the were armed people or were bandits. Now, when this happened, I feel that this, like other brothers said, there have been this existing conflict before the Anglophone crisis, but it has always been mitigated in such a way that it doesn't escalate. Why? Because there was that one voice in talking. And now when the crisis came, brothers started fighting against brothers, sisters started fighting against sisters within the Arab community, and so it now created groups and groups and groups and
There's
groups
a lot of score settling. To remember that one of the funds in Aram, the fund of Nicom was released. He was kidnapped and was released 2 days ago.
Yes.
Another fund of another village in whom was kidnapped.
Was kidnapped
and was released, I'm sure, 2 months ago. A secondary school teacher in whom was also released the same day with the fund.
So you see, this cost settling is kind of dicey. Now, but what should we do and what should be done? The Muslim community has what they call the imam. The Christian community has what we call the pastors. So in this kind of situation, the imam and the pastors need to come together first and have a quick emergency meeting, call their people first, and now see how they can do what they can do to mitigate and to reduce what the level of violence. Before now the administration come in. Now there is a responsibility of the imam and the pastors and all these persons to come together.
The traditional
rulers come together and see how they can talk to each other. Because whether we like it or not, the Arab people and the Fulani people are people of the same area. Just that they have different kind of religion and different kind of affiliations. Because if you look at, when I talk about people of the same area, I'm talking about who you live with on a daily basis.
Yeah, but there are people who came.
Yes, there are people who came.
No, this
is a trick. This is a trick. Someone came and someone was born and has been more than 50 years, that automatically becomes his place. Whether the person migrated or not, automatically by virtue of the fact that that person was born in that area and saw the fact that the father grew up in this area. So that is difficult to isolate some of these cases. In a nutshell, we recognize them as Cameroonians staying in a geographical area and having a problem. How can we help these Cameroonian brothers and sisters to live in peaceful harmony, such that these people do their grazing, these people do their farming, and they live as they have been living before? The imam and the pastors, the traditional rulers, need to come together and see how they talk with their people. Second thing is, the state has a responsibility. It is a responsibility of the state to move in when they started hearing that people were being attacked. They don't need an executive order from the presidency of the republic. They have to respond spontaneously to arrest the situation and get those who probably must have committed some of this mayhem be arrested or kept kept in the protective custody while dialogue and discussion move further. The next aspect is that the elite too, who are only known to come home when there's a political election, when there's an election, they are supposed to take a stand in Yaoundé and call the administrator that something is happening at home. Our people are being killed. Our people are fighting against each other. There is need for government intervention, and we have not had this. We heard this elite talk consistently about as far as this RM situation is concerned. There is need for Honorable Wala and the rest to sit together, call an emergency meeting. How do we settle this dispute with our people back at home?
Okay, Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa. We know that the Mbururos, they have the Ardo, who is the traditional ruler, and then the Hausas, they have a Sarki, who is in Womb, and then for the traditional, for the Aram indigenous people, they have the paramount phone of Aram, and then we have the other villages, the Naikom and the rest, Wanangwen and the rest, they each have a phone. Is this also time for the Ardos, the Sarki, and the traditional rulers to come together? And why not the political elite? We have the senator, we have the member of parliament, we have the mayor, we have the regional council, municipal councillors. Is this not the time for them to also be seen as greatly implicated in finding a lasting solution? Because this, the fight between the Muslim community in Womb, it is recurrent, and the pictures that are coming out from Womb are not really nice. We remember that the last attacks, we saw the palace of the fund of Naikom actually burnt down alongside others.
Yes, Mr. Lo, you know, in communities like that, funds wield more power than political elites, especially with the situation on ground right now, where most of our politicians are no longer in their communities. They live far away, and they're living in very luxurious hotels in cities, and they are not in touch with the people. I think the funds, the Ados, the Sarikis that are around that environment, who are the ones very close to the indigenes of their communities, have so much influence over them. It should begin with the traditional rulers. Let them have a common ground on which they will meet and tell the people to hold on. We are deliberating on this. When we will come out, we'll give you resolutions we have arrived at. Because it looks like the people do not even know where they are standing. The Sariki is the one that has to tell the Hausa that this is our position. The Ado has to tell the Mboro, this is our position. The Fon has to tell the Pop Agam, this is our position. If at all they understand that this is the leader's position, everybody will follow. But if they don't understand the leader's position, they will react anyhow. The uprising this morning is because there is no particular stand. The Fon has not taken a stand. If the Fon has a stand, then there will be no uprising. People have gathered at the grandstand this morning in Womb, carrying sticks, carrying clubs, carrying machetes, that they want to retaliate. The Fon is the person that's supposed to come out and tell them that, calm down. We have not arrived at a conclusion when this as far as this matter is concerned. The Ado have to tell the Mororos, get back to your tent, oh Mororos. The Sariki has to tell the Hausa, get back to your tent, oh Hausas. Let us sit and deliberate as head of this community and these clans. What we are going to arrive at is going to be the rule of engagement that will guide all of us to live as brothers and sisters again. The problem is the first meeting has to do with the individuals who have influence, immediate influence. We can't be calling politicians from Yaoundé that may take 1 week to reach Agam. It may take 1 week to reach Agam. When they try at the level they cannot manage it, now they can bring a civil administrator there who is a deal of that particular community. That can bring the commissioner and the gendarme officer who is guarding the brigade there. Let them also sit down to dialogue, because dialogue is from one stage to another. It's a process. If the first stage cannot solve it, we engage the judiciary. Let them come in also and see how we can deliberate on it. Then they now set up rules of engagement. If the problem is because we are grazing and entering into your lands, we are going to give limit to the way you graze here. If it is because cows were stolen, we are going to set up security that they will not steal cows anymore. Let us go to the crux of the matter and find what is sparking the problem. We deal with the root of the problem, it will solve the problem forever. How did they steal? Where did the thieves come from? How careless were you also to the extent that you could not guard your cow for somebody to steal in your farm? Did you leave your cow loose? You could also be someone to be blamed for the action because you didn't protect what you have. And now what parameter did you take to know that people from Agam stole the cow? You can't accuse somebody without having any evidence. The law says you are proven innocent until there is an evidence.
What evidence the Bororos take to know that it was Agem who stole from them? I'm sure these things are supposed to be.
Who stole the car? Because the first persons that were killed were in Bororos.
Yes.
They were taken and their bodies were found yesterday, and they reacted to it. So those who have cows are in Bororos. So who stole cows from who?
The issue is there is a tendency, there's this nuance that those who were killed are Bororos that were killed by militia, by Arab people. But this is it. They were from
Killed by Arab people?
Yeah, that's what. No, I said that's what is hovering on the air. That the Bororos that were killed by some militias within the Arab community. No, so you get.
No,
this
you're afraid. What do you call militias? What do you call militias in the Arab people?
No,
say it like it is.
No,
you're not helping to solve the problem. When you say ones that were they're attacking the Aram people stole cows or that Aram militia, are you saying that Aram has a militia?
I am saying, and I will say it professionally, that they are alleged militias. I was not on the ground to know whether they were Ambe boys or not. I'm just saying that these are people who said they're militias.
It's today I'm hearing that there are militias.
No, I'm not saying that they are militias. I'm saying that.
When you say militias,
but militias is
an organized group.
It's a small group, an organized group that specializes on stealing cows.
Oh. Militia, is that the meaning of militia? Militias are thieves? Yeah, Mr.
Mr. Leonard, I think we are too matured enough to come and sit here and be playing hanky-panky with words. It has come to our common knowledge that bandits invaded the ranks of the secessionist fighters. Let me put it very clear. Bandits invaded the ranks of the secessionist fighters. And the Fulanis have been crying hula-by that they invade their ranches, take their cows, cross over and sell them in Nigeria. Who in whom is not aware of this? Are you hearing this from me? It happened in Ndonga Mantung, it happened in Boyo, it happened in Bafut, it happened in Menchum. So the major bone of contention between Bororos, Fulanis now is that bandits steal their cattle and sell it because they take advantage of the cacophony, of the quagmire that is going on now. And so there is this permanent animosity between the Fulanis or Bororos and the indigenes. So that is the bone of contention. That is the root cause of this living without trust, of this fear, of this confusion that is looming the air. And from there, anything can happen. Considering the fact that Jarvis acknowledged on this platform here that even amongst the Agam people, there is lack of trust amongst them because people have taken advantage of the crisis and now attacking each other. There are some Agam people who side with the Fulanis. There are some Fulanis who also side with the Agam.
Please.
So at this juncture, peace is difficult to come. We must look for a means to bring peace. One, how many funds have been murdered? How many funds have been murdered? How many political leaders have been captured and decapitated? How do you expect them to come in now to solve this problem? When if they come in favor of the Fulanis, the Agam people will come behind them. If they come in favor of the Agam people, the Fulanis will come behind them, or the boys in the middle will come behind them. It becomes difficult. Okay. That's why you hear the leaders are quiet about it.
Okay.
And it's a difficult situation that we must bear.
We have to come to an end of this discussion, but just to say that the Senior Divisional Officer for Menchum says that investigations are ongoing, and I would not want us to leave the studio with an impression that the Agam community has a militia. That is very, very dangerous. I cannot ascertain that the people of Aram have a militia. We understand what is happening down there, and we pray that things are brought under control. Apostle Ambe, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Thank you, Cameroonians, for giving us your ears tonight.
Mr. Thank you for coming too.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here. I hope to be here again next time, and I'll give a deeper insight more than what I've done today.
Ok. Monsieur Jescat, merci d'être passé par ici.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Léo Kum, de m'avoir invité. Permettez que je vous invite aussi à vivre le congrès, la semaine culturelle de Bambi à Bacham, le 6 août prochain.
Okay.
C'est dans les Bamboutos.
Je serai là-bas. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. The people of whom should get their elite, and of course the traditional rulers, the imam, the pastors need to come together and see how they can talk to their individual communities to restrain.
Okay, we want to thank you all who took time off to watch this edition of the program. Take another rendezvous tomorrow, 7 p.m. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.